Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. We're gonna be reviewing books, obviously, and I'm so sorry for the bad camera quality, but I'm just a girl who wants to review books, and that's what we're gonna be going to do today. Starting with my favorite book in the whole wide world, Little Woman. Love her. The series? Mm, not so much, but love her. The series? Mm, not so much, but the first book, like volumes 1 and 2, love, love, love. Let's start off with like a little summary about the book. It's like a book with like these four sisters. Okay, so it's Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. And they're just like living their life in the 18th century. I'm pretty sure this book is like based on because their dad is like in the Civil War. So they're just like living their life, and they see a neighbor, right? Their neighbor, Lori, my king, and they just like kind of hang out and it's fun, it's cute, it's girlhood, and there's like a lot of growth that happens because this book, or I should say book series, is just like from them from when they were like in their teens and Amy was like in her like tweens and up until they're like in their 40s by the end of the series, but like in the first book they're like just in their teens, and it's just like a really cute like book. Happy Pride Month! Lori, the neighbor, is very close with age from Joe. Like they're similar ages. And, because of that, they become friends. And, all the other sisters also become friends. And it's just like every chapter, there's not really like a plot. It's just every chapter, they have like a little minor conflict and they have to like figure it out with each other, kind of like the power of friendship kind of thing, but like it's like low key and subtle. And it's like, girlhood, what problems girls go through. Not like in depth, but like, since Joe, she wants to be a writer, but like 18th century, girls can't be writers. So, things like that. And like, they make mistakes, they figure out their mistakes, happily ever after, kind of. Now, on to why I love this book, okay? Like, because this is genuinely my comfort book. It's so cozy, so sweet, and like also interesting at times. Not like super interesting, like there aren't like facts and like drama and stuff, but it's like still interesting. Like, you just want to keep reading to see how each character like solves their troubles and like, loves their like how they solve it and like, the little pleasures they have in life, like, going to parties and just like hanging out with one another, and you just like have to get into the book. Like in the beginning, it's kind of like boring, it's just like them hanging out. Like you, once you really get into it, like the emotions they feel are the emotions you feel. And this is like I said before, it's technically two volumes, but I just like am putting them like together as one and reviewing them together because I gave them both 5 stars. Like these are both 5-star books. And the first book is like when like the girls obviously they're like in their younger years and they're kind of like sheltered, and it ends with the upcoming marriage of one of the older sisters. And the second volume continues on with the story with like the girls a little bit more mature, they're older, and they have more responsibilities and stuff. And through both volumes, the characters go through love, loss, heartbreak, and healing. And I will say, this is a complaint I hear a lot of people say, and it does get a little bit preachy occasionally. This is a complaint I hear like very often about this book is like it is kind of preachy, very slightly, well, in my opinion. But even if you don't like it, you can just like skip the chapter. It's just like growing up, sisterhood, and like other than that, like there's no other way I can like explain how much I love this book and its characters because it's just like very just everybody is love. It's love. Everything is love. Okay, next book in the series, Little Men. Okay, I don't know if you guys hear the resemblance. Little Woman, Little Men. So, Little Woman was volume 1 and 2 from when the girls were like from their teens to, later teens. Little Men is like when all the girls are like in their 20s, mid 20s, late 20s ish. And it's just like a continuation of Little Woman. where Jo is like now in her mid 20s and has her own boarding school called Plumfield, which houses school aged boys. And of course, her nieces and her nephews from like her other siblings. And the focus of this book like differs. Like instead of being about girls and like their society, which created more of like a cozy and calm atmosphere, Little Men is like about boys of Plumfield and their crazy adventures, obviously because, this book is about little men. And honestly, I didn't really like this book as much as I liked Little Woman, and I only gave this book 3 stars, you know. Because I don't know, like Little Women, I could feel like I related a little bit more because I'm a girl, and Little Men is like about boys. So I didn't really like this book as much as its predecessor, if you couldn't tell by its 3-star rating, because only some of the characters from the last book made an appearance in this book, and occasionally I did feel the same warm feeling as when I read Little Woman. And the main reason why I didn't really like this book is because Jo feels like she has lost her passion or spark. And that's so sad because like in the first 2 volumes, her whole like identity was like making a career out of writing and like that's what she liked and that's what she wanted to do. And in this book, she has 2 sons, like between Little Woman and Little Men, I guess she had 2 sons. And she's kind of like forced to play like the mom role because like she that's all she does. Like she only takes care of like the boys and she, feeds them, cooks for them, goes after them and like watches them. And I don't think she felt like the same like things as, the same passion as she did for when she was younger because she doesn't really talk about writing. She doesn't talk about anything. She just like goes on and on about like oh how she loves her boys and like she's so happy to be in Plumfield now. And I don't think that's true. Like Little Woman, like she was really passionate about her career. She wanted to be independent. She wanted to do her own thing. She said she didn't want to get married. And now she's married with 2 sons. So something like felt off about this book and I didn't really like it. I feel like in this book she talks so much about, you know, women should do all the sewing and cooking and like she pushes her nieces and like the other girls, 2 girls in Plumfield to like, be more focused with her dolls and like cooking and cleaning and like the boys get to basically do whatever they want kind of and that's why they're like kind of like messy and like ruggish, ratty, whatever. And honestly, it's like a lot of preaching about things I do not like. I don't think we should be promoting, injustice and discrimination against women, but then again, this book was written in the 1800s, so I guess I have to give it some leeway, question mark. Um, yeah, but I still pushed through because that's how much I liked Little Woman, and I really wanted to finish the series. And this book really is a necessary read if you want to continue the series because the fourth book, or third book, I should say, fourth volume, is based on, there's like a lot of characters from Little Men that like also grow up and go to Joe's Boys, the fourth book, third book, sorry. And, the boys, the little men in Little Men, grow up and are like the main cast. Like the original Little Woman cast is kind of like put off to the side, and now you just follow like the little men and like their lives and their families and stuff in the next book. Next up, Joe's Boys, the last book in the Little Women series. And, this book skips 10 years into the future from Little Men. So instead of, the girls being, or I should say, like the main Little Woman cast being in their mid 20s, like they were in Little Men, now they're like in their 30s, 40s ish. It doesn't really say exactly, but I'm assuming they're around 40 years old. This book starts off with the sisters reminiscing about their youth and, their past and like how young they were previously, but like at the same time, they're like looking forward to their blooming sons and daughters and their friends from Plumfield. Some of the characters from Little Men are still close to the family, and their futures are heavily detailed in this book, while some of the other boys from Plumfield are kind of cast aside. which honestly I'm glad about because I couldn't even keep up with all the boys in Plumfield anyways. Like I only knew like three of them, which were like the main cast. The other 12 boys that were in Plumfield, I don't know anything about them. I forgot everything. And in this book, Joe's Boys, the original cast consisting of the sisters and Lori take a seat back, with romance and adventure of the next generation being the spotlight. Joe's Boys is a lot more similar to Little Women, and that's probably why I liked it more than Little Men, because and I gave this book 4 stars. And I think the writer's style has improved and shown through a lot in this book, with the way she describes events and people with a light but vivid air surrounding them. The characters also felt a little bit more realistic than, the other books, especially in like how they interacted with each other. And I love the fact that the kids who we got to see now grow up from Plumfield and into this book all had their own distinct identities and personalities, which is like a problem I see with some other books where like all the characters they kind of get muddled together. But in this book, with like all the characters, because it's the sisters, Lori, and like the kids from Plumfield, they all have like their own distinct identities and personalities. Like even if there's like no dialogue saying like, oh, this person said this, you can kind of tell who said what. And I feel like that added to the realism of like, them all knowing each other because they're all like supposed to be like together and like family and like hanging out with each other. And I feel like them all having distinct identities helped play into that and make it more realistic. And one of my favorite parts of this book was Meg's son and her youngest daughter's sibling banter. It just felt like so realistic how they spoke to each other, and it was like so funny how like, they cared and but they weren't like faking it, I guess. Like I feel like some people when they write about like siblings, it's like so like, you know, they're just like distant or like they're really mean. But like this sibling banter was like accurate, like especially because their age gap, I feel like how Meg's son talked to his like sister, I feel like that's like accurate. Like that's how big brothers would talk to their sister. And honestly, throughout this whole series, Laurie is easily the best character throughout the whole, books because his dialogue is like so recognizable and I love the way he talks, which is like his very like younger self from when he was like in Little Woman to Joe's Boys. He's like still jolly and cheerful, but like now with like more of a mature sophistication he gained over the years. And speaking of which, I got so many chills when I was reading this book because the whole series started from Meg, Joe, Beth, and Amy and Lori being in their teens, and now their children have grown up and they're in their teens, which is like very like heartbreaking and like bittersweet to me because like I just watched these kids grow up and now their kids are also growing up. And I feel like this series is really like a look into the passage of time and I really love it a lot, very much, because it's just everything everyone would want, like love. Okay, guys, it's time for Virginia Woolf. We all love Virginia Woolf, right, guys? Right? Yeah. Yeah, we do, right? So this book, I have the physical copy, unlike Little Woman, because I read that on Google Books because it was free. I'm a, I love free. I love free things. But this book I had to buy on my own, A Room of One's Own. Guys, this is the book. Or, no, it's not. Sorry, I just want to act like a YouTuber influencer person. Ooh. But you know what book is the book? Little Woman. Get on it right now if you haven't already. I started off with this book because I want to introduce myself to, Virginia Woolf because I heard so many good things about her. Everyone's raving about her. Oh my gosh, Virginia Woolf is the best. And I love an independent queen in the 1800s or 1900s. This is 1900s. She's in the 1900s. And I just had to like support her. I just had to. So this book is relatively small, which is why I started off with this because I've heard some things about like feminist literature, like she's like kind of into that thing, kind of, sort of, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But this book is about like feminism and stuff. I gave A Room of One's Own 3 stars, and I feel like this is like the most feminist book ever, quotation marks, because it's kind of like the only feminist book I've read, because there's not a lot of feminist books, and I feel like more people should be writing feminist books. And the reason why I love this so much is because I feel like Virginia Woolf really put all my thoughts into words. Like I already had these thoughts. Like whatever she talks about in this book, like I already had these thoughts. But she just puts it into words, and I feel like it's such a book that you can just like, if you're a dude and you don't know anything about feminism, just read this book. It'll give you a very good insight. Or even if you're just a girl and you're like, oh, like what is feminism? What ideas do feminist people have? Read it. And I feel like she makes a lot of references to Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, Wuthering Heights, and Middlemarch. And I feel like you guys should read that prior to reading this book because I feel like it gives more of like an insight of what Virginia Woolf is talking about. Because if you don't know anything about those books I just recited, they're all written by females. And Virginia Woolf kind of like uses them as like a talking point of how women should need their own room to and like have peace and time to actually write good books. And that's kind of like what she's kind of trying to convey, you know? So to really understand like what she's talking about in this book, you should read Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, like those two definitely. And if you can, Wuthering Heights and Middlemarch, because those are kind of like heavier books. I've read them, but you know, I feel like Jane Eyre and Pride and Prejudice you should definitely read before reading this. And what's interesting is like I heard a YouTuber say like this book, A Room of One's Own, is really good to read alongside Little Women. Um, I mean, I guess like I feel like the themes kind of match because Joe is a writer. Virginia Woolf in this book is talking about, you know, how women need their own time and their space and, you know, money to write so then they can be good writers, which is kind of like the problem Joe was kind of having in Little Women. And honestly, it's like the easiest book out of the Virginia books I've read, Virginia Woolf's books that I've read. And that's kind of why I started off with this because I heard other people also say, like, oh, if you want to read Virginia Woolf, you gotta read this first so you can get an idea of her, like, stream of consciousness writing. That's like a way people describe her books. After reading A Room of One's Own, I decided to pick up To the Lighthouse because I heard some good reviews on it. People said like you should probably read like Mrs. Dalloway or The Waves or To the Lighthouse, but I felt like To the Lighthouse was like a really interesting cover name, so I picked that up first. And to give a summary, the lighthouse is like an amusing object in the distance to the Ramsey children, which is like the family in this house or in this book. Especially like the lighthouse is especially interesting to the youngest son, James Ramsey. He longs to make a trip there. Mrs. Ramsey, his doting mother, always assures him that soon, very soon, his father will allow for a trip to the lighthouse. But there is always an excuse for why they couldn't go bad weather if which is like certainly going to ruin the trip if they went that day. Mrs. Ramsey wants to give her son hope that even with the bad weather, there could be a chance of going still. James is upset at his father for the refusal of the trip, as well as the yearning Mr. Ramsey, Mrs. Ramsey's husband, has for his wife, displayed by looks and gestures, which James interprets as his father competing for his mother's love. Mr. Ramsey and James, though being father and son, seem to have a strained relationship. Mr. Ramsey seems to feel like he needs to have a strong hold on his family, which causes him to look cold and unrelenting at times. And James wants parental love, which he gets from his own mom, and also feels a sort of resentment towards his dad for lacking the affection that he wants. The painter Lily Briscoe is well acquainted with the family and discusses in her inner monologue the way her art looks as well as the remarks Charles Tainsley makes about it. Lily and Charles are kind of like side characters, and you know, things happen, and a 10-year time skip ensues. Lily Briscoe is still a painter, though a more proficient one, and thinks about Mrs. Ramsey and the past. thoughts piling up on each other just as the tide rises, and Mr. Ramsey finally takes the two of his children to the lighthouse. My personal advice for reading this book is don't look at the synopsis because I feel like it kind of spoils the book. And maybe that's why it's in the synopsis. Like the point isn't about the event that happens, but to me, I didn't read the synopsis. I don't like to read synopsises before reading books. And I feel like it caused more of a surprise, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I kind of felt like the characters because the characters also didn't know what was going to happen. So don't read the synopsis, please. And if you did, erase it from your mind. It's okay. It's okay. And the reason why I like this, oh, and I don't know if I already said this, but I gave this 5 stars. But the reason why I like this was because of the candid and vivid writing. And I think Virginia Woolf's skills truly shine through this book with her imagery and emotional realism. I will say, again, don't read the synopsis because I feel like it kind of disengages from the point of the book, and the point of the book, in my opinion, is that of the delicacy of life and not taking things for granted. And yeah, I really like this book. There's a lot of feelings, and I feel like the imagery was really, really good. This is the book, guys. But Little Woman is the book. This is a book. No, this is the book. This is the book, lowercase. Little Woman is the book, uppercase, underline, bolded. Yes, guys. Another fan favorite, Mrs. Dalloway. I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about Virginia Woolf, they always talk about Mrs. Dalloway. And, this is the third book I read from her. So, I was jumping on the train with everybody else. Yes, guys, I read Mrs. Dalloway. Ah. Yep. Well, summary of the book. Let's get to it. In my official, the place where I put all my reviews and stuff, I said that this book was 4 stars. I feel like realistically it's more like a 3.5 stars, but I guess we can just lower it to 3. And I don't know if that's just because it's been a couple months since I read this book, but I don't really feel any super connectedness with this. But, let's get to the summary. So this book is a story of all events unfolding within a day, beginning to end. And it takes place in 20th century in England, and it opens with Mrs. Dalloway, this lady. Mrs. Dalloway is a lady, obviously, and a hostess of a party taking place in her manor later that same day. Her perspective on the day is just one of many that are shown throughout the book. Another, more eventful, in my opinion, perspective is told through Septimus and Lucrezia. The latter we know by Rezia, which is a nickname Septimus calls her. They are a married couple intertwined by fate, almost cruelly because of the circumstances that trouble their daily life when the story is told. Septimus is a war veteran who is mentally scarred and seems to be suffering from PTSD, which, in the time period that he's in, isn't properly diagnosed nor treated. His wife, Rezia, has fallen in love with him, or the bits that remain of him, before his mental illness. She leaves behind her family, country, language, and culture based in Italy to be with him in England, and does her best to cope with the struggles she faces within herself and her husband. Though not major, there are other tidbits and past memories resurface to help shape the quaint lives of the characters. Going back on what I said about Septimus having PTSD and is not being properly treated or diagnosed, that's kind of the main falling point of the book. Not on Virginia Woolf's part, but it's one of the problems that the characters have, and it's kind of the butterfly effect, And, going off of that, I think this book is really about the interconnectedness of people, how events from different places and individuals can come together, even briefly, and stir emotions. I do feel like this book is a little bit overhyped, but if you really look past that and just the book itself, it's really good. And what I mean by that is I feel like I had such high expectations for this book because everyone is on about it, everyone's raving about it. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Mrs. Dalloway is the Virginia book you guys got to read." And I was like, "Wow, this must be a life-changing book." And I feel like since everything just hyped up this book. When I read it, I was kind of like let down a little bit, but like that's not Virginia Woolf's fault. That's just everyone else's not fault, but like everyone else's opinions that I consumed. And, if you look past all the raving and like everybody else's opinion and just like read the book, it's pretty good. Like it's okay. And I feel like the book would have been better in my opinion if there was more about Mrs. Dalloway's past, more specifically about her and her former best friend Sally Seton. I also did feel like this book was a bit too open-ended for my liking, but that's how life is, I guess. Like, life happens, things happen, and it's not like a single day in a book will have a solid conclusion because a single day in real life doesn't have one either. And all days just kind of blend and transition with each other. So, the open-endedness of the book, had to be open-ended. There wasn't really like again a solid plot. Nothing was really like happening. It was just kind of like a day in Mrs. Dalloway's life and how things from, that happen to other people also connect with her. Okay, next Virginia Woolf book. And the last one I've read currently, Between the Acts. This book I gave 2 stars. I'm sorry, Virginia Woolf, but it just nothing really hit because it's just kind of like this act that's happening within the book is being like said and told and like the characters are like commenting on it question mark. And I will say the imagery is very beautiful in the beginning and the vibe is like potently summer. It's very summer-esque, vibes. And like I mean it was good, but I feel like it got progressively boring and I didn't really understand the message that was trying to be said through the play because this play that happened within this book was about like England and like from like the 15th-ish century to like modern day and like they were talking about like reflection and I don't really know what was going on. And out of respect for Wolf and the fact that this was her last book before, committing suicide, I'll give her 2 stars because she truly is a brilliant author. It's just like this book really wasn't it for me. And, something that all of these books have in common, minus A Room of One's Own, but all these like fiction books, is like they all have beautiful, beautiful, let me just show you guys. All these books have very beautiful imagery. And one of the things I said when I first read Virginia Woolf was like, I really wish that Virginia Woolf wrote like a solidly romance book because her imagery is out of this world. Like the best imagery I have like probably read in like almost any book. And I feel like with that and like the way she describes like yearning and like feelings and like passion so subtly, but like you can feel it. I feel like that would have been such a good like foundation for a romance book, which I feel like a lot of romance books lacks these days. And I don't really read romance because of that either. And I feel like Virginia Woolf, if she wrote a romance book, I would definitely be like the number one fan of that book. Like I would be like number one, like that would be the book. It might have to even compete with Little Women. That's like how good her imagery is. So definitely like give these books a try. Next book is Jane Eyre, which I do not have a physical copy of, but I read it on Google Books again because it was free when I was reading it on Google Books. Go check that out, guys. I don't know if it's like the same thing where like they, take away some books, like it's free for like a week or two and then like they take it away, but nevertheless, like if you have any classic lit literature books that you want to read, go on Google Books, see if it's on free because that's the reason why I read a lot of classics because it's free and I love free. Yes. But Jane Eyre, I gave 3 stars. I know everyone loves it. I wasn't really feeling it, especially because of the age gap. I'll probably talk more about that later. But synopsis of the book, or I should say summary, my summary of the book. Jane Eyre is a young girl who has lived with her uncle's family after her parents died, and tragically, her uncle has died as well. The story starts with Jane Eyre's woes, with her aunt and cousins treating her cruelly after her uncle's death, only keeping her in because the will of her uncle wanted his wife to take care of Jane after his death. Her aunt decides to send her away to boarding school. All is fine, and little Jane grows up and gets a position as a governess at Thornfield Hall for a little girl. The person who owns Thornfield Hall is none other than Mr. Rochester. Very important character for the book, okay? And also the one with the age gap. And he's a very brooding and mysterious individual. From the time Jane starts working there as a governess, there seems to be tension as well as connection between her and Mr. Rochester, which I feel very sad for her about because she was only like 19 when like she was hired as a governess and Mr. Rochester is like in his 40s, 30s, something like that. Not a very good age gap. Hmm. Jane is a bright young lady now, and now as in when she was 19 and hired as a governess, with a strong mentality from all she has endured from childhood till now, which doesn't excuse Mr. Rochester going after her, but and because of that, she kind of like challenges Mr. Rochester as like a equal, and some time goes by and they are very good terms until a dreadful secret is revealed about Mr. Rochester. And as many people say, there is a gothic and dark vibe to this book, which makes it perfect for an autumn read, though I think it could be read in winter as well. A surprise at the short amount of time the book spent on her upbringing. And so most of it is about Jane's time in Thornfield Hall. Because the way the book was set up, I was like thinking, okay, like we're gonna go from her going to boarding school and like, talking about her, how she grew up, the things she went through during boarding school. But her time in boarding school like went by relatively quickly than what I expected it. And there was like kind of like a mini time skip, and I was like, whoa, why are we skipping all this? I feel like her upbringing would be an important part of the book, but that's just my opinion. And, because of that, most of the book is like spent on her, being in Thornfield Hall and like her progression with like Mr. Rochester. And the reason why I gave this book only 3 stars, even though I really liked it, like I really did, I would have given this 4 stars if it weren't for the crazy age gap and maturity difference between Jane and Mr. Rochester. Because Jane is fresh out of boarding school at 18 or 19. I don't know, something like that. And Mr. Rochester is 30 something years old. Huh. And that was a bit of a jump scare for me. And I feel like I would have really loved this book a lot more if I could have overlooked the fact that their age difference was crazy. Or if the book had Jane in her mid to late 20s, minimum. Okay, she should have been at least like 20, like in her 20s, like 23, 25. Or if Mr. Rochester was like a decade or so younger. Yes, guys, that's how old he was. He's very old, very not good look for him. But other than that, there's like no major flaws I can like objectively say. So, it's just preferences on my part. That's why only gave it 3 stars. So, good book. Would recommend as just like a read. And also, if you're gonna read Virginia Woolf or Remove One's Own, this is one of the books I said that you should probably read because she references this. Next up, Wuthering Heights. And this is also one of the books I said that you should probably read before reading Room of One's Own. And, I personally only read this book out of the recommendation of a teacher. And the only thing she said about the book was that Heathcliff and Catherine were made for each other. After reading, I can attest that is indeed true. They are both the most self centered, unconcerned, intolerable characters I think any book has ever housed. But I still give it 5 stars because they make it work amongst themselves. And because all they have is an undying love for each other. And when I say undying, I mean undying. I mean it. This love is, of course, at the mercy of everyone who surrounds them and will interact with them in the future. Bronte, the author, drops a few characters that are wonderful. Edgar Linton, the best character in this whole book. He was like the reason why I was able to push through like most of this book. And by the time it was like already about to end. I was like, okay, like I guess I can finish this book. And the thing about this like book that I really really love, why I gave it 5 stars, is that the author gives this book such a tinge of hope that can't be replicated unless the circumstances that these characters face are repeated and the circumstances are created as a byproduct. Oh my gosh. And these circumstances are created as the byproduct of the undying love that Heathcliff feels. He's like the main problem of this book. Sorry, had to say it. I can understand why people would hate this book if they had been forced to read it, like for school and stuff. So, if you read this book for school and you're like, I kind of hate this book. I don't know why you gave it 5 stars. I can understand why you would say that you hated this book because if I was forced to read this book, I don't think I could have been able to do it. And it's because all the suffering that is put into this book is like everything, the worst things that could happen to a person, or one of the worst things that could happen to a person, just all mushed together, put into a book, and given to you. And if I was forced to read that on a timetable, oh, on Monday I have to read this, and then I have to turn in like a 5 page essay, I would also hate this book. But, it's very mentally exhausting in that account. But I feel like since I was able to read this on my own time, that just made the ending all the more satisfying. And is the ending a conventional happy ending? No, 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 no. And I feel like maybe it would be even considered like a boring ending in any other circumstance. Like any other book had this ending, I would be like, ew, WTF, 0 stars. Like I wouldn't even like try to review it. But like these characters, they just went through so much. Like I need you guys to understand like the trauma, the psychological torture that they faced is just like at this point at the end of the book, if this is what makes them happy, they've been through so much. Just I was like, okay, you know what? If they're happy, they're happy. And I don't even care about who the characters love. I'm just glad that they could make it and survive this long because they went through a lot. And so did I while reading this book. Like, mentally, I went through a lot. It's very exhausting to read. So, I would say maybe schools shouldn't assign this as like a required reading. Maybe people should just read this on their own because it's just a very heavy book. It's very heavy. It's very heavy. I had to take multiple breaks while reading this. I had to mentally prepare myself before reading this book. But it's really good. It's really good. Like, I had felt everything that the characters felt, I felt. Like the characters were me. I was the character. So it's really good. 5 stars. Would definitely recommend. Please read it if you're mentally prepared to. If you're even if you're not, just like take a break and then pick it up and then take a break and then pick it up again. You know? Just read it. It's really good. Guys, please. Next book, The Alchemist, which I do have a physical copy of. And I gave this book, originally when I first read it, I gave it 5 stars. But, again, this book does not have a plot. And over time, there's like not really any characters I related to. So now when I think about it in my head, it's kind of more of like a 3 star book, but that's just my opinion. But originally I did give it 5 stars when I like just finished reading it. Like it was very eye-opening, insightful, but there was just nothing to like grasp on long term. So, do with that what you will. But the summary of this book is, a shepherd boy, Santiago, goes through a series of events and lessons that change his outlook in life. And he comes to realize that and notice the positives of everything that are hidden in his experiences. This book has great lessons and encouraged a positive outlook on life. And I would definitely recommend this to younger teens or older preteens because it really helps you find the good in little things. I wouldn't say it's a good book in a traditional novel kind of way with crazy plots and characters, leaving you with no idea what will happen next. But this book is good in an insightful way. This storyline and plot is interesting enough to keep you hooked and includes good lessons without mentioning or referencing any specific religion. Just it's just lessons about life. The boy also learns lessons and goes through immense character development, in my opinion, which is to be expected because he ages a couple years from the start till the end of the book. At first, he's at first he is drawn in to go to a mission for treasure, and so are we. With the reward of treasure in our minds, the reader and Santiago, we trudge through and the boy makes decisions based on his goal of finding his treasure. It does have a bit of a have faith in the stars kind of vibe, like, you know, all his things he kind of talks about are like, oh, this happened because I had faith in my future and I shouldn't really care about what I do that much right now. It's not something I should be overly worried about, which I guess has its basis. But it's just kind of like, have faith, you know, just wait for fate to do everything for you, which I didn't really agree with. But, it's just for, younger teens, so I can't really complain. And, not that that's a bad thing, but he learns that he shouldn't rush things and what he needs will come to him with time, which not might not apply to things realistically. So this book isn't really about the journey. Oh, this book is really about the journey, not the destination. I wanted to knock out a few misconceptions. It's not a self-help book, nor very philosophical, and it doesn't have extensive pages on how life should be and doesn't talk about moral dilemmas. It's very simple, to the point. It's just about a boy going through a journey that teaches him to have faith. So it's a very well rounded book for all young teens or young kids to read. I would recommend it. If you have like a younger sibling or something, good book to read them or have them read if they can read. Just very simple. Originally 5 stars, currently 3 stars. Parentheses. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for listening. I got to get all the my opinions off my chest, and you were there for me. Thanks. See you. See you. Bye.